Why did ancient Romans consider a single fruit important enough to name over 50 different varieties by the time their empire collapsed? And why does the way we ripen it today still involve deliberately tricking the fruit into thinking it's already dead? The pear's cultivated origins trace back to somewhere between Europe and Western Asia, with archaeological evidence suggesting humans were consuming wild pears as far back as 5000 BCE, though deliberate cultivation likely began more recently, around 1000 BCE in regions of ancient China and Western Asia independently. Unlike apples, which trace back to a single clear ancestral origin, pears appear to have been domesticated somewhat separately across multiple regions, making their true genetic origin story genuinely more complicated to untangle. Ancient Greece developed a particularly sophisticated relationship with pear cultivation, and the Greek poet Homer specifically mentioned pears in his writings as one of the fruits grown in the legendary gardens of Alcinous, described in the Odyssey. Greek physicians, including the influential Galen, later documented specific medicinal uses for pears, treating them as a genuinely valuable dietary and health resource rather than a purely ordinary fruit. Rome then transformed pear cultivation into something approaching genuine obsession. Roman naturalist Pliny the Elder documented an extraordinary number of distinct pear varieties, somewhere around 35 to 50 depending on the historical source, each with different flavors, textures, and optimal growing conditions. This level of agricultural specialization suggests pears held serious cultural and economic importance throughout the Roman world, not unlike how modern wine regions carefully catalog distinct grape varieties today. Following Rome's collapse in the 5th century, pear cultivation, much like many other refined agricultural practices, was preserved primarily through European monasteries throughout the medieval period. Monks maintained careful records of specific pear varieties and grafting techniques, ensuring that centuries of accumulated horticultural knowledge survived through Europe's most unstable and turbulent historical period, largely hidden away within monastery walls. A significant transformation occurred in France during the 1600s and 1700s, when French horticulturists, particularly under royal patronage at Versailles, dramatically expanded serious pear breeding and cultivation. King Louis XIV's personal gardener, Jean-Baptiste de la Quintinie, developed sophisticated growing techniques specifically to produce high-quality pears for the royal court, elevating what had been a relatively common fruit into something closer to a genuine culinary art form among European aristocracy. This is where pears reveal one of their strangest, most counterintuitive biological secrets. Unlike most fruits, pears are specifically harvested while still hard and underripe, then deliberately stored in cold conditions for a period before being brought to room temperature to properly ripen. If left to ripen naturally on the tree, most pear varieties develop a distinctly unpleasant, gritty texture at their core, meaning the fruit essentially requires human intervention to reach its ideal eating quality at all. The biochemical reason behind this involves something scientists call the ripening trigger. Pears produce significantly more ethylene gas, the hormone responsible for fruit ripening, once removed from the tree rather than while still attached and growing. Essentially, tricking the fruit into a state resembling post-harvest stress accelerates ripening far more effectively than simply allowing it to mature naturally in place, an almost counterintuitive relationship between plant and grower that took centuries of trial and error to fully understand. European colonization eventually carried pear cultivation to the Americas, with Spanish missionaries planting the first pear trees in California during the 1700s, and English colonists separately introducing pears to the eastern colonies throughout the same century. Indigenous adaptation of European pear varieties, combined with distinct American growing conditions, eventually gave rise to entirely new varieties suited specifically to American climates, distinct from their European ancestors. Commercial pear production expanded dramatically throughout the 1800s and 1900s, with regions like Oregon and Washington State in America, alongside various European growing regions, becoming major global producers. Specific varieties, like the Bartlett pear developed in England during the 1700s, eventually became so dominant commercially that they now represent a significant majority of pears sold throughout the United States and several other countries today. So think back to that opening question: an empire that catalogued over 50 distinct varieties, monasteries that quietly preserved the knowledge through Europe's darkest centuries, and a fruit that still, to this day, requires being deliberately tricked into ripening properly after leaving its tree. The pear's history reaches from ancient Greek mythology to a genuinely strange biological quirk still shaping how every pear reaches your kitchen today. The next time you let one ripen on your counter, remember, you're quietly participating in a biological trick humans have relied on for centuries.